do a quick live feed, kind of interact with you guys a little bit. I know I haven't been live or anything in a while. I am currently working on a headband that's going to be two colors. I'm going to do this color, and then I'm going to go with some variegated. I'm not really sure which variegated yarn I'm going to use yet, but I thought it might be fun to hop on here on this Wednesday night and spend some time with you guys. As you know, I am really bad about having all my supplies where I need them. So I had to run and get some scissors. I'm going to start with some Big Twist Twinkle. I have been obsessed with this yarn lately. I don't know why, I just have been. So I'm gonna put that in here. Reset my row counter. What project have you guys been working on? Anything fun? Let me see. Yeah, thank you so much for watching this stream. I just figured since I'm working on a headband, you know, I might hop on here, see how everyone's doing. I know it's been a weird couple of months. I have to say this Big Twist Twinkle is my favorite yarn. I think it is just so beautiful. Oh, hi Katie. Yeah, this isn't really that exciting of a stream or anything, but I figured I'd hop on here and crank for a few minutes. I've been trying to upload at least 2 or 3 times a week just to kind of get out there a little more. So for a headband, I typically do 90 rows. So I'm going to do 45 rows of this black, and then I'm going to find me some variegated yarn to go with it. So I'm at 17 rows. I'm almost, I don't know, under halfway there, but yeah, so I am grabbing the red right here just because my handle is broken. So my Addie has been kind of a little sick. I had it on a table, my cat knocked it off, and so right here, this part of my handle broke off, and you see it's held in with a different bolt. And it hasn't really worked right since then. I really need to invest in another one. See, when I use only the handle, it grinds. So I'm just doing this to kind of push it along and help my handle out a little bit. You do not have to do this with most Addies. Mine's just really temperamental, and I need to buy a new handle or diagnose the problem, but I'm probably going to send her into retirement. Yeah, you can buy a new handle. I've seen them on Amazon and Etsy. It's just a matter of me being too lazy to order one. I've been doing a lot of work on my 22 pin, so I haven't really seen the need to buy one for my Addie King, just because I haven't been using it as much. But see, when I kind of push it forward, it doesn't really give me that many issues. So I'm sure it's a thing with the gears and the handle. As for like getting new parts for your Addy, I know that Etsy has proved to be a really good resource for me. That is where I got my power adapter for my Addy. I have gotten extra legs, all kinds of stuff. Handles are only like $20 in American dollars, so it's not an expensive fix by any means. I am almost ready to switch yarns on my headband. I only have 10 more rows, so we're moving right along. Are there any specific videos or anything you guys are wanting to see? I know I've been uploading more, I don't know how to describe what I've been uploading, but I figured I'd ask because when I was first learning, I found it very difficult to find videos that explained what I wanted to learn. I had to do a lot of my learning on my own. So I'm like, hey, you know, if I can help somebody out with a question they have, I may as well try to. One more row of this black. So that's 45 rows. I'm going to step away from the camera for a minute and go grab my variegated yarn. So this yarn here is Cypress Landing from Hobby Lobby. It's like $5 a skein. I've made 2 hats with it, and I figured I'd use it for half of a headband. I really love the way that this has worked. I just think it's beautiful. So I'm just gonna put it in my feeder by my black peg here. Close my feeder. And I'm gonna do a row or two before I tie the knot. Just, I don't know. I've always done it that way. Yeah, I love this yarn. I think the colors are always really beautiful. It is a little bit more expensive, but I think it's worth it. Now that I've done a couple rows, I'm just going to tie my knot here to make sure my headband doesn't unravel. Now I'm going to knit until I get to 90 rows. Hopefully I have enough. Like I said, I've made 2 hats out of it, so I'm kind of testing how far I can make one skein go. Whoa, that was not good. Yeah, noises like that is why I should probably replace my handle. That is definitely on the short list of things to get done. Had a little drop stitch there. When your machine's not really liking a yarn and dropping a lot of stitches, I find it helps while you're knitting to push down right here. Some people use weights, but I prefer just to push it down a little bit. See, like right there, there's a drop stitch. I know you can't really see that, but pushing down helps prevent it from happening. I have found with the levels of tension I do that my project starts to drag the ground around 60 rows. So I'm at 59 rows right now, and it's starting to drag. So when your project is dragging, this pushes up more than it should and can mess up your stitching. So So I always fold mine in to itself like so, just to kind of keep it off the ground and keep it from messing up. And along we go. The good thing about using an Addy is that it does have a row counter. I know some Centros and stuff do not have row counters. I can put a link in my channel description, but I have seen a lot of good counters that are actually apps on your phone, and you lay it in front of your machine and it detects every row you do. It's still like a more experimental software, but it seems to work pretty well. I tested it out the other day. See, now I'm pushing down because I did get a couple of drop stitches this last round. So I'm just going to slow down a little bit. And I'll scoot this up so you can see my tension. I do not keep it very tight at all. I like to roll my yarn into cakes just to make sure you have that constant pull. Where with a skein, you know, sometimes you have more tension than other times, and you gotta kind of hold it in your hand. But I found when you use a cake, it's pretty consistent and it's not very hard on your machine. I got my yarn caker from Knit Picks. It was only like 20 bucks. And I can do a normal size skein on it. Now, if I have like a 1-pounder skein or something larger, then I do have to make 2 or 3 cakes out of that. But I don't really mind it because I don't really use cakes that big very much, just because I don't do a lot of huge projects. The largest project I've ever made was a king-size blanket, and it had 13 tubes. I think they were 450 rows each. It took me a couple of months to finish that one. It was craziness. It was actually a scrap blanket, and I did it all on my king. It turned out beautifully. I made it for my mother's birthday, so I think she really enjoyed that. I'm at 78 rows, so I only have 12 left. We're moving right along. And after I finish my last rows, I am going to do some waste yarn, just because with a headband, I like to close it off with crochet. You can close it off like the top of a hat and then actually stitch it together still, but I don't think the closure looks as good when you do it that way. So I go with the classic Z closure, which I'm going to show you once I get this bad boy off the loom. The closure that doesn't require waste yarn is also a little bit more bulky looking. So I definitely suggest taking the extra 5 minutes to use waste yarn. It really improves the overall quality of your project in the long run. It's just like less bulky and more neat looking. So I have 3 more rows. And it looks like I did have enough yarn. So I'm at 90. And when you are about to do waste yarn, you want to stop right before your first black peg. And I'm actually going to leave a pretty decent tail here. So I'm going to cut it and leave it in the middle. And look, I did have enough yarn. Hello, Debbie. Thank you so much for joining my stream. We are working on making a headband that's 2 colors. I just finished my stitching, so I'm actually up here grabbing a crochet hook, and we're about to move into some waste yarn. This waist yarn is from Knit Picks. You see it's a little tangled. My cat got a hold of the skein. Not good. Now that I've finished my 90 rows for my headband, I'm going to do 4 to 5 rows of this waist yarn. And you'll notice this green color doesn't really match any of the variegated I'm using, which is fine. We want it to not match because, one, it's not going to remain on our project, and it makes it easier to pick up the stitches when we are crocheting. Like I said, that's a tangled mess. I had to pull a little bit of it out. So when I started this project, I maybe did 3 or 4 rounds of waist yarn, but I always make sure to do more waist yarn when I'm casting off, because if you'll notice here on my cast on, it doesn't unravel. It just kind of sits there. But when you're casting off, it can unravel. So I always make sure to do a couple of extra rows just to protect my project. So I did 6 rows. I'm going to cut this off. Scoot that up. I'm going to lay this right before my black needle because that's needle number 1. I'm going to run this through twice with no yarn in it. The first time gets all the stitches off of the peg, and then the second time takes them off of the loom, like so. So now I'm done with my keying. I'll lay that aside. And with my crochet, I like to lay my project out flat first. And here's my tail I left. We're going to pull this through, have it on the correct end. Now you see where your 2 ends are? This was peg number 1. So we want peg number 1 to be right here on both sides to make sure your headband's not crooked. So I have my crochet hook. This is a size F. You really can use almost any size you want. They all work the same for this. So I'm gonna move in closer. And every stitch has a mate. You have to remember the Addie King has 46 needles. So that's an even number. There's 2 stitches across from each other. And I'm just gonna crochet these together, picking up every stitch that's not waist yarn. So I'm continuing to pick these up. It's very important that you pick up every single stitch. If you don't, it actually becomes unraveled and it doesn't look very good. And let's just not skip any. If you do, you can pick the stitches back up and kind of crochet up your tube. But that's a lot of extra work, and for what it is, I just take the extra little bit of time to make sure I pick up every stitch. Oh, I'm so glad that you love your pocket scarf I made. I've gotten a lot of compliments on mine, but I'm a little aggravated. You know, I did a gray tube in the middle and then black pockets, but I think it would have looked a lot better if I did only solid black. I definitely think I'm going to make a lot of those this next winter. Like, we're almost towards the end of winter here. We maybe have about 1 month left. And so I'm figuring if I make a bunch next year, those will probably be pretty good sellers. Yes, I do plan on making a 20, not a 22, I'm sorry, a king size tutorial to make a pocket scarf as well. Just, you know, if you don't feel like doing the 3 22 tubes. I try to make as many as my patterns like compatible. Whoa, I am so sorry. Compatible to both machines because I don't really know which machines my viewers have. Alright, now that I'm at the end of my crochet, I'm just going to take my tail here and pull it through, and this will create a knot. Just pull that. And now we can pull our waist yarn off the project. My cat really loves this part. I usually give him the waste yarn. He's over like in the corner just waiting to attack. So here's our finish. I think that looks really good. I didn't miss any stitches or anything. So now I'm going to do the same thing on this side, making sure that all the tails are in the corner. I'm just going to pick this up, both stitches, and every stitch will have a mate across from it. This is just your standard tube closure with waste yarn, nothing special here. I like, when I'm closing my tube with waste yarn, using smaller crochet hooks. Now you can use any size you want, but I think it's a lot easier to get in there when you have a smaller hook, just so you have a little bit more room to work. I've done this with a super big hook before, and it did take more time. See, sometimes like your stitches kind of get stuck in here a little bit. You have to kind of spread it out to find them, but they're there. I think that's why some people just kind of drop stitches, because sometimes it is hard to see them no matter what color your waste yarn is. Oh, the main colors for this? I do 90 rows for a headband, so I did 45 rows of each color. I like to do half and half headbands because I think they look really cool in the front. Yeah, and this blue yarn, I haven't tried it before. I actually saw it in a knitting group. It is Hobby Lobby I Love This Yarn Cypress Landing, which they come up with the weirdest names for their yarns. I mean, like, what a job to have, a yarn color namer. That would be very interesting. I do believe this week is Hobby Lobby's 30% off yarn sale as well. I am almost to the end here. Sometimes it does get a little funny up at the end, just a little disorganized looking. Now, this stitch right here, I am not going to crochet. That way I can show you what happens when you miss a stitch and how to correct it. So please know I'm doing that on purpose, and I know I did lose one. Now, when you're removing waste yarn from the cast-on side, you notice if you pull, it doesn't come right off. So all these stitches right here, you just kind of pull the yarn that goes through them, and it frees it up. So I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to pull the yarn that goes through all the stitches. I think I got every stitch. Nope, I have one more. And after you pull that yarn, it pulls off just like your waste yarn from the other side. Okay, so I have one more stitch here, and I'm going to close it up. So now I'm going to lay my headband like this. I'm going to lay both sides beside each other, and we're going to fold it like an S, like that. And while it's folded like this, I'm going to take both ends and tie them to each other. Now, I didn't leave a very long tail on the black, just because I wanted to sew it together with the blue. So I'm going to grab my yarn needle here. And I'm going to make sure I go through all of the layers. So I sewed through these 2 layers. I'm going to go through these 2 and these 2. You go through 6 layers total. I'll pull her nice and tight. Again, we're making sure we go through all 6 layers. Would you guys be interested in like a make-along video where if I have a new project, I can hop on a live like maybe at 11 o'clock my time and just sort of show you how to make it live so you can ask questions? This is really like my first live making video. I do have an older video that's the hat. Okay. So I sewed all the way down. Now I'm going to sew all the way back. And I found that is enough sewing to hold your project in place. You don't really need to go over the top. I am making sure that as I sew, I keep this join nice and tight. I'll do one more stitch after I pull this all the way through. Now I'm going to take my yarn needle off, lay my headband out, and I'm going to tie my two tails together again. And I'm going to cut my tails to where they're the same length. So, like that. I'm going to stick them both in my yarn needle. So throw that scrap aside. They're both in my yarn needle. Well, maybe. Here we go. I'll get the blue in there eventually. Then I'm going to pick up my headband. And I'm going to tuck my stitches, my yarn in between my stitches. So I'm not going through both layers of the headband. I'm just going in between the two layers and keeping my tail in here. I'm going to pull it a little bit. And now I'm going to cut here as well. Just going to pull until that goes in. And I've finished my headband. So this is the inside. And when you flip it, this is the outside. Like I said, I really do enjoy this kind of closure. I'm going to step away from the camera for a minute and I will show you a headband with the other closure and kind of compare like the way they look. So I'll be back. Okay, so this headband here was closed without waste yarn. And as you can see, I still sewed it together, but the ends are puckered up like a hat. And so when you sew it together, it doesn't look as good. I think I'm gonna make a bow or something to put on here. But when you take the time to do the waste yarn and to close it this way, customers like it better, it fits better, it's less bulky on your head. And I feel like it's just better all around. So this was the Lion brand baby yarn. My favorite yarn. It's ice cream. I think this color is cookies and cream. This is also the ice cream yarn. I forget the name of this color, but it stripes. And as you can see, these are like the same yarn, just different weights, different colors. And the closure with waste yarn just looks a lot better. While I was up, I also grabbed my hat that I made with this yarn. I like how it has a random black stripe in the dye pattern. I think it's really cool. I've been making a lot of these reversible hats. So you could have a black hat or one that's this color with a black brim. That's all I really have for you guys, so I'm going to hop off of here. Thank you so much for watching my live video. I hope it was helpful. Feel free to leave comments even if you're not watching this live. I do my best to reply to every comment that I get. And thank you guys so much. Happy crafting!